I've been testing 3 different pairs of Vivo Barefoot shoes for about a year and a half now. The Gobi IIIs, the Magna FGs, and the Primus Trail Knit FGs. Altogether, I found these 3 different styles to be extremely versatile, comfortable, and durable. While there might be some small changes that I'd hope are made to these shoes in the future, I've loved them. And I do imagine that I'll be getting more Vivo Barefoot shoes in the future. As well, it's pretty apparent that Vivo Barefoot goes to great lengths to minimize the impacts of its footwear. Vivo Barefoot is a certified B Corporation. These shoes are made from many natural materials. They're extremely durable, and Vivo is committed, seemingly, to setting the standards for sustainable, or as they might call it, regenerative footwear. If you're already on the barefoot shoe journey or considering testing it out for yourself, I think each of these styles from Vivo Barefoot might be worthwhile to consider. And in this Buy Ensemble review, where my goal is to help make your people and planet-friendly purchases easier, I'll explain why. With all our Buy Ensemble product reviews, we measure sustainability in 3 ways. First, performance. Does the product serve its intended use? Second, people. What's the product's effect on people behind the product? And third, planet. What's the product's impact on the planet? You can learn more about how we define a sustainable product with our full-length episode on what is a sustainable product. But for now, let's talk about how each of these 3 styles of Vivo Barefoot shoes live up to their intended purpose and performance. And then overall, we'll see how Vivo Barefoot measures up as a brand with their impact on people and planet. Okay, let's talk first performance with the Gobi IIIs. Putting your Gobi IIIs through rougher uses like this kind of compromises their very clean city look. Unfortunately, I think that is the case with my shoes, but for all the day-to-day and some light physical activity, the ease of wearing these shoes is pretty remarkable, and getting a complete tactile feel for the ground is rather unmatched. After a year and a half with these boots, they've held up quite well, although I do believe my harsher treatment or testing shows on the leather. There are signs of wear and tear, but not to the extent that deems the shoes unusable. I believe the full grain leather upper can age well and could possibly look a bit better with a little bit of treatment. The shoelaces were actually the first to snap, so I had to replace them. These are new ones. And also the stitches at the front are beginning to fray. The sole is mostly intact, except for some small eroded patch below the heel. All in all, they're still holding up really quite well. But from what I could gather, you can't buy this exact style anymore. It seems as if Vivo Barefoot has since adopted them into 2 different styles. The Raw 3s, a lower cut everyday shoe, and then the Gobi III Wind. Seemingly the same cut, it's kind of same shoe, but now designed for colder weather with a warm winter liner. Now on to the Magna FGs. The Magna FGs are described as a hybrid between a shoe and a boot, ultimately a lightweight hiker. Vivo Barefoot says that these can be worn from city to summit. I've loved my Magna FGs. I've never found a true hiking boot that I've liked. They never feel too bulky, heavy, and clunky for me. To me, it's kind of felt backwards with a more conventional hiking boots. I've almost felt immobilized given the fit and feel, but the Magna FGs have really solved that for me. I love wearing them hiking really at any kind of difficulty. We live in Texas, so for our climate, it's gonna be on the warmer side. So they suffice pretty well as a winter boot for me here in San Antonio, Texas, with a warmer sock. In peak summer on trails, while I wasn't overheating in these shoes, they do retain some heat and you can feel it. So maybe a consideration, depending on the climate that you live in. I'm not sure that Vivo would advise wearing these boots in hiking conditions in high 90, 100 degree weather, but that's been when I've been hiking in peak conditions, and 3 out of 4 seasons of the year I'm wearing these. In Texas in summer, still wearing them, but just considering a little bit more the breathability when it's really, really hot. Nonetheless, these have become my chosen boot for trails of any kind for me here in Texas, just about all year round on dry or wet days, as they are waterproof, and I've put that to the test multiple times. The firm ground outsole lives up to the claims of increasing the grip and stability no matter the terrain. I do feel quite secure and in control in my Magna FGs on really any terrain, but likewise, it's very flexible. These shoes fold up, you know, as you can see here, and that shows itself, you know, when you're on the trail. Like I said, you know, strong contrast to more of a conventional hiking boot. The flexibility in these Magna FGs is pretty incredible. As far as durability goes, I've put a lot of miles on these shoes and a lot of time out in the yard, and more recently on the basketball court, and they've held up pretty well. Oddly enough, the shoelaces on these boots snapped as well and needed to be replaced, which is kind of weird. But other than that, the wear on these Magna FGs is even less visible than the Gobi IIIs. The tread on the sole is holding up quite well. There hasn't been very notable wear, even with the sustained use on natural trails and concrete. You know, very minimal wear. The suede has aged pretty nicely. You know, there's some slight fade to it, but in my opinion, it doesn't take too much away from the look of the shoe. You know, only notable item here is maybe the separation here with this material where there's the final shoelace eyelet. But that's the only thing that, you know, I can really notably point to as something that's functionally off with the shoe. And in my opinion, you know, if you're looking for a lightweight, multiple season hiking boot, I really can't recommend the Magna FGs enough. And you know, if I lost these shoes or they just became absolutely unusable tomorrow, they would be shoes that I'd 100% buy again. But like the Gobi III, at least from what I saw at the time of this recording, you can't buy these exact Magna FGs anymore, as it seems they are strictly making them now with leather. You know, I liked this material personally, so I'm a little bummed about that, but maybe they'll bring these back. Finally, we're talking about the Primus Trail Knit FGs. The last of these three Vivo Barefoot styles that I've been trying are the Primus Trail Knit FGs. The trail knits are a great runner, generally in my experience, and really exceptional on trails. Vivo Barefoot says they're quite versatile, can be a low profile fast packer and hiker, which they claim, of which I'd certainly agree. You know, provided it's dry and I know the trail well, I'll wear these out to hike, even in somewhat more difficult conditions, instead of my Magna FGs. I've also used them for tennis, pickleball, basketball, chasing my toddler, and whatever else. These have almost become a catch-all kind of active shoe for me. They have great grip, and have been a great fit, but I personally do not like the fastener. Maybe that's a personal preference, you know, and that's a me thing, but I can't help but find myself repeatedly tightening the fastener, as well as finding it a bit awkward for where to wrap it, so that it's not just, you know, dangling around. But again, maybe that's a personal preference, but that would maybe be the reason why I wouldn't get this particular style of Vivo Barefoots again, and would instead opt for something with more traditional laces. As for durability with the Primus Trail Knits, like I've said, these shoes have been put through the ringer. Maybe the shoes I've worn the most, and I would say that's started to become visible about you know, a year and a half of wear, after a year and a half of wear, right? So much of the tread on this is still very good, but the wear is noticeable. In some places on the top of the shoe, you'll see the fabric is ripping, and in some places it's starting to separate from the sole. Hard to balance, you know, between the level of activity and actually how durable these shoes are, but of the three styles I have here, they felt the least rugged, and that might be, you know, totally based off their intended purposes and uses. But I think they still have a lot of great use to go, even though the wear has become pretty noticeable. Sizing for all Vivo Barefoot shoes so far, in my experience, The shoes run mostly true to size. From what I could gather from others and my own experience too, people with extra narrow feet might feel that it's too large a fit, especially at first, like myself. So a smaller size could be better. I recommend you lean on the Vivo Barefoot size guide to get your exact fit. I use the EU sizing chart to get the right size for me. All styles of the shoes came feeling a little large. However, after an adjustment period, I came to find that the sizing was perfect. So again, so you're prepared, all Vivo Barefoot styles are a bit wider and might seem different than your conventionally fitting shoe. This might be why Vivo Barefoot offers a 100-day trial to let you test the shoes out. In general, barefoot shoes feel relatively roomy, especially if it's the first time for you to try them on. A few days of using them, will usually do the trick, and provided you got the right size from the start, they'll end up feeling just right. You just have to give it some time. So as far as comfort goes for each of these Vivo Barefoot styles, all of these shoes weigh close to nothing. And this is one of their best features, in my opinion. I'm someone who hates bulky footwear, whether I'm hiking or just out for day-to-day activities. So this has been something I've loved about Vivo Barefoot shoes and why I feel I'm guaranteed to buy from them again. Maybe the only thing that might take some getting used to is the barefoot feel itself. With a perfectly straight sole that's also paper thin, you feel more of the ground than you otherwise would, or I've even experienced other barefoot brands before, and Vivo Barefoot seems to have the greatest contact with the ground. So this seems a little bit weird at first, especially when you're walking on a sidewalk, downtown. You definitely feel more of the street than you otherwise would. But with some familiarization, this soon wears off, and you get to know the full benefits and comfort of barefoot shoes, which Vivo Barefoot is a big proponent of. If you aren't completely familiar with some of the benefits of switching to barefoot, as is advocated for by Vivo Barefoot, they say facilitates greater balance, whether standing or moving, makes keeping good posture easier, encourages using a natural gait while walking, helps in maintaining proper form while running, reduces stress on your joints, gives an increased range of motion for ankle joints, builds strength back into your feet, which has been lost from conventionally padded and supportive footwear, among other things. But all these styles are pretty flexible and adapt quickly to your feet. The feel is a bit raw, I guess, and that's the biggest thing. Just to say, it does take some getting used to, but the experience is far better than many other barefoot brands that I've tried. Although I don't think that you have to be a barefoot believer yet to like Vivo Barefoot. I think they have the potential to convert and appeal to first-time barefooters as well. All this considered together, should you buy some Vivo Barefoots yourself? I've loved these shoes here, and I highly recommend others try them out too. As well, with a 100-day trial, I'm not sure that there's much to lose. These shoes are flexible, refreshingly lightweight, and I think really live up to each of their purported purposes. Also, as we will get into more next, Vivo Barefoot is making many serious commitments, and most importantly, taking important actions to lead on what makes for sustainable footwear. Definitely be prepared for the adjustment, especially if you're new to barefoot footwear. A little soreness in your feet after sustained wearing is normal. Pain is not, so take testing your shoes out at a cautionary pace. I think finding your right style will be a matter of personal preference and what you hope to use them for. If you have questions about other styles, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. If you want to give Vivo Barefoots a shot, you can use the link growensemble.com/Vivo, or check for that link in the description below. We receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, and that commission helps support the production of this channel. But now let's move on to the second part of our review, where we talk people and planet. First, let's talk transparency. Vivo Barefoot calls its supply chain a value chain to be more transparent and share what they call the truth about the impacts of their business and who's involved in the making of their products from start to finish. Vivo Barefoot shares a list of significant suppliers, and as well on their website they provide an interactive partner map. This partner map offers detailed information about the people making their products. According to Vivo Barefoot, building partner maps is a step in making fully regenerative footwear. As Vivo Barefoot calls out, there's incredible opacity and lacking transparency in both the footwear and apparel industries broadly, and that lacking transparency hides the true impacts of businesses. Vivo Barefoot themselves, while acknowledging their imperfections, has chosen to lean into transparency, and I applaud them for that. The partner map strives to show useful information about the people, processes, and materials involved in producing their shoes. The map shows who the partners are, what their role is, and what the scope of the partnership is. In addition to an overview of the partners' businesses, there's also some basic social data and environmental impact data as well. The partner map is still a work in progress, and some producers, especially the ones in China, have very limited details about their operations. I clicked on several material producer locations in China, and the interactive maps didn't contain really any useful information at all. In contrast, a distributor in the Netherlands contains information regarding the people they employ, how many, their ages, and whether or not they're in unions. As for the planet, they do mention how much solar versus grid energy they use and where they source their water from. Of course, overall, and I think Vivo Barefoot would agree, I hope to continue to see more and more of this information moving forward. Vivo Barefoot isn't claiming they've reached all their sustainability goals, which they discuss in detail in their impact report titled Unfinished Business, but there's a part in the report that's particularly interesting. They call that fantastic failures. Vivo considers several aspects of their operations to be in need of more work. I'm referencing their latest report here from 2022 to 2023. Here are just a few example areas where Vivo Barefoot proactively suggests they have far more work to do. First, 56% of the materials they currently use are virgin polymers. Also, they still don't have comprehensive data regarding the environmental impact of their top 3 styles. Then the repair business model focuses more on high revenue styles, so they must widen their focus. They plan to focus more on kids' footwear. The report is overall very informative and forthcoming. The part on greenwashing using 15 metrics to measure success, regenerative business, and the Live Barefoot Fund are also worth reading, but that's bigger than the scope of this review here. Let's move on to labor practices. Vivo Barefoot partners with many factories and suppliers in Portugal and China. There are other partners in Europe and Asia. Vivo outlines in their detailed code of conduct policy that all partners must pay fair wages, provide safe and hygienic working conditions, prohibit child labor. Of course, that's all great and expected. The goal for Vivo Barefoot and all other apparel brands for that matter is to get complete transparency into their supply chains to ensure all those aspirations are in fact reality. Vivo Barefoot seems well committed to doing this, more so than most brands I've assessed, for sure. But again, if codes of conduct were all executed as they were written and enforced as such, we wouldn't have problems of industry of any kind anywhere. It's about transparency. Vivo is doing good here, but of course, they need to go further. In all these assessments, I need to point out an extremely important philosophical disagreement I have with most all businesses, even those throwing their hat in the regenerative or sustainable rings. There's some idea that building your supply chain and then seeking transparency is the appropriate order of operations instead of building and maintaining a completely transparent supply chain from the beginning. Surely, one will curtail the rate of growth for a brand like Vivo Barefoot because building and maintaining transparency from day one requires greater due diligence, but we have to be clear of the costs we are weighing here. One, Vivo Barefoot's ability to scale and grow fast, with 2, hidden exploitation and excessive environmental degradation within their supply chain. Again, I'm not saying that this is an issue that Vivo Barefoot has, but the decision to me seems clear. Don't even create the thread of opportunity for your brand to be complicit in any exploitation throughout our globalized marketplace. What's more important, one well-intentioned brand's growth, or that we can guarantee safer working conditions for anyone and everyone, no matter who they are or the state of development of their economy? I've talked about this before, but even the best and brightest sustainable brands, such as Patagonia, have been victims to an opaque globalized supply chain with issues of slave labor, falsified organic materials. And again, I'm not saying that Vivo Barefoot is a company experiencing the same sort of challenges, but the only way to guarantee they won't and aren't now is for them and then as a result of that, us to get complete transparency into the happenings of their supply chain. Let's talk contribution. According to Vivo Barefoot, the mission statement for the Live Barefoot Fund is as follows. Our mission is to establish the Live Barefoot Fund as a leading impact fund for scientific-led and nature-based innovation for both regenerative shoemaking and experiences. In that respect, they collaborate with NGOs, research centers, social businesses, and indigenous communities in several ongoing initiatives. Financial contributions include donations, sponsorships, and social loans, although I couldn't find exact figures for how great of contributions Vivo Barefoot is making on an annual basis. On to planet, and let's talk materials and impact. So for all their styles, Vivo Barefoot takes considerable care with the materials used and their impacts. While Vivo has set the North Star to design their products to be fully circular, they also admit that not a single shoe yet is fully recyclable or able to be composted. Again though, they show a great conscience in the selection of materials, and that's true with the shoe styles that I've used. With the Gobi IIIs, for example, they use leather procured from smallholder farms in Thailand where the cattle were raised for meat. The leather is tanned without the use of chrome. The shoelaces were made with 100% organic cotton, and the insole is made from cork, and the sole is made from 30% natural rubber, 70% synthetic rubber. There's still room for Vivo to grow here, and they'll be the first to admit again, but they do seem to take their materials use quite seriously. We'll continue to follow along with Vivo's stated North Star goals to make products fully circular. They are not there yet, but they are positioning themselves to be leaders in footwear in this regard undoubtedly. It'll be interesting to pay attention to Vivo Barefoot's partnership with materials science company Balena, where together the two companies are working together to bring fully compostable, made-to-order barefoot footwear to market in 2025. Once any of your Vivo Barefoots become worn out, the company encourages you to send back your shoes so that they can refurbish, repair, and potentially resell them through their ReVivo site. Customers from the UK, US, and Europe can send back their Vivo Barefoot shoes for free. Most exciting though, Vivo Barefoot is offering repair and refurbishment services for variable fees, but this is currently only available to customers in the UK and limited to some styles of Vivo Barefoot shoes. I look forward to see that this repair service gets expanded. The cost seems somewhat on par with a new pair of shoes, but the impact of keeping that same pair of shoes in action for the longest duration possible is an incredible step towards making the whole fashion industry more sustainable. I appreciate at a minimum that Vivo Barefoot is willing to accept full accountability for the end of life of their products, even if that means they position themselves to be responsible for finding the most appropriate means to recycle the shoes. Again, this is not exactly where we need to be, but as it seems, I'm repeating constantly here, Vivo Barefoot is working hard, as I can tell, to set the standards for where in footwear and apparel broadly we need to go. All right, y'all, that's it here for our review of the Vivo Barefoot shoes. I hope you found it useful in making or not making a purchasing decision of your own. I'll humbly admit, some of our critiques or suggestions here stated in our People and Planet sections might be things on the minds of the folks at Vivo Barefoot already. So if you believe I got something wrong or didn't give you the full picture here, please don't hesitate to comment or reach out directly. I'd be thrilled to make amendments or a follow-up of some kind. And once more, if you'd like to give Vivo Barefoot a shot and pick up a pair of your own, which I totally recommend, try the link growensemble.com/Vivo or check for a link in the description below. Again, if you purchase a pair of shoes after following that link, we receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, and that commission helps to support the production of reviews just like this. Lastly, suppose you enjoyed what you learned in this Ensemble review. In that case, I'd encourage you to sign up for my newsletter, The Weekly Ensemble, where together with social entrepreneurs from all over the globe, I explore the art of living and working sustainably. To do so and get that next newsletter in your inbox, go to growensemble.com/newsletter. All right, y'all, until next time.